All right, guys, we're live. We're back. Takeaways with Tay, another Sunday. Do y'all see these lovely plants behind me? I just thought it would be a great addition to my, what do you call this, sanctuary. Um, I've been falling in love with plants lately. Like, especially plants that I can actually grow. Like, not fake plants, live plants. And so I'm super excited about these plants behind me because this one actually I bought like maybe a couple months ago, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I appreciate that because it makes me want to keep watering it and keep it alive because I don't think I'm great with plants. But anyways, happy Sunday everybody. Taylor Nixon is here for another episode of Takeaways with Tay, where I provide you with key insights from books that I've read throughout the week or just in the past that I feel like you might be able to benefit from and take the wisdom from. So, let's get into it. This particular topic that I'll be talking about today it's about creativity. And it's a super important topic for me because I am a creative. And for those of you who know, I make music. I'm an artist. I've been performing, so I'm a performing artist. I have an EP out a Tuesday in October. It's available on all streaming platforms. I also have a mixtape out on SoundCloud, Member Me, and YouTube. And yeah, so I think I'm like 7, 8 years now in terms of being an artist professionally and doing it to actually share my art. So definitely have the experience to speak on what it is that I'm speaking on today. And this book that I'll be introducing to you all is called The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. And I think it's going to be very inspiring and helpful to artists, creatives, or anyone who just had an idea and wanted to birth it or bring it out of your mind. So yeah, the book is called The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. And for those of you who don't know who Rick Rubin is, he's a genius, a musical genius first and foremost. He's a legend. If you consider yourself an artist, a rapper, a singer, a producer, whatever, you need to study him because he has never picked up a musical instrument in his life. Yet this guy is, when I tell you he's a musical genius, he's a musical genius. He's worked with Jay-Z, the Beastie Boys, LL Cool J, Public Enemy, Run DMC, and so many other artists. And I call him a legend because he's partly responsible for making hip hop commercial, like the commercial success that hip hop experienced. He had a role in that with the Beastie Boys and Run DMC. And so yeah, I really highly encourage you to definitely check out his work. He has like a lot of interviews on YouTube, and he's been a part of really great work. So like I said, if you're an artist, singer, producer, you definitely need to check him out. And I also feel like he's the definition of a producer. There's this argument about a beat maker versus a producer, and Rick Rubin would be the example of a producer. He takes an idea from scratch, brings it, nourishes it, and then executes it so that it's now an actual thing. And that's what being a music producer is about. It's not, I think people kind of get the terms confused about like, making a beat or making a song. Like you can make a song, but having that song from ideation all the way to execution is a totally different process. So yeah, I like I said, creativity, it's probably one of my favorite things to talk about, being an artist. And I believe that everybody is creative. I believe that everybody is born creative. And one thing that Rick Rubin talks about in the book is that creativity doesn't require an age or a status. So, with our jobs, the occupations that exist in the world today, there's usually a set of expectations or a set of requirements that you have to meet in order to be a doctor, a teacher, a lawyer, a therapist, and so on and so forth. But when it comes to creativity, the only thing that you need is work and attention. That's it. Everything that the creative experience is very unique. It's very unique to the individual that is bringing about the experience. And that's the thing about creativity that I've always enjoyed. And I guess you could say, as an artist, it's made me feel very free. Like, free to start my journey wherever I want, because who's going to tell me that I can't? And so, yeah, that brings me to my first point, which is that creation is a process. So anytime you're creating anything, and I think anyone that has ever had an idea and brought it to life can attest to this. You go through like a roller coaster of, is this idea good? Like, first you love it. When you first have it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. And then, during that process, you're like second guessing yourself, you question yourself, and you're like, I don't know if this is something that I want to continue to pursue. If this song, does it need a different drum pattern? Do I need to add another melody? You start to like just kind of get insecure about, what you're creating. And then you get to a point where you're like, okay, no, I didn't need to change anything. I just needed to calm down, relax, maybe take a step back from whatever it was that I was creating and revisit it. And I have to do that a lot. As an artist, I have to walk away from things that I'm creating, because sometimes as an artist, I don't appreciate what I've done, and I think anyone, like I said, who's created anything can attest to this. Sometimes we overthink like what it is that we've done, and we maybe kind of like overanalyze, and it can stunt the idea altogether. And that's what Rick Rubin talks about in the book, is just some of the hindrances to, being able to bring an idea to life and creating, if you will. And Rick Rubin says that creativity begins with awareness. So it's like walking outside and acknowledging the way the air feels, or acknowledging, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what you're smelling. That's awareness. It's being present. And as long as you're aware of, whatever, you can, that's like the basis of creating. And, a lot of times we aren't really aware. We go through like our day-to-day lives, we drive to work or wherever, we need to get to, and we're not fully, like, sometimes I'll be driving, I'll get from A to B, and I'll be like, I don't remember driving at all. Like, and it's because I'm not present in the car. Like, I'm thinking about other things that have to be done, or a conversation that was had, or, just something other than driving. And so I miss out on the entire drive. Now, driving is just small in comparison to, actually what you can create. It's like you have to have an awareness of like, okay, this is what's going on. So it's almost like a filtration process, like filtering what's coming in your mind and what's not, so that you can use that to kind of start your creation, if you will. Also, creation, I think that it's not limited to just artworks and things like that. Like, you can create a business plan. You can create so many things. You can create a human being, with all the right things in order. There's so many things that you can create. And I think that creation, the process of creation is very similar across all different aspects of it. This world that we live in is a creation. Things had to happen in a process in order to be able to exist the way that it does. Like, I don't believe anything is just here and that it just happens, and things like that. But so yeah, creativity begins with awareness. Art is an inner journey of a person to themselves and then coming back and expressing what they saw. This to me, this point to me is super key when it comes to realizing that there is no competition and realizing that what you have to create as a creator is unique to you. It's unique to your experiences. And so because of that, because it's unique to your experiences and it's unique to you, there really is no competition because there's only one you. So when it comes to the way that you see the world and the way that you interpret beauty and what's beautiful to you, what sounds are beautiful to you, is different from the way that someone else might do that. But that doesn't mean that theirs is better or yours is better. That just means that you're in your own lane and they're in their own lane, and therefore there's no competition because art is subjective by nature. You know, like what I see is beautiful versus what someone else sees is beautiful. They're two different things. And I think that's the thing, like as artists, that we kind of get in our heads about is like we want everyone to accept our work. And it's like we are essentially trying to control something that we can't control. And Rick Rubin talks about that in the book as well. Like you have to learn how to let go as an artist, as a creative. You have to learn how to let go of what it is that you're creating. So yeah, you know, you have a discipline about your routine and your work in creating, but then you also have to understand that you can't make everybody like what you like, and everybody might not see things the way that you see it. But that doesn't mean that it's not worth seeing. That doesn't mean that it's not worth sharing. That doesn't mean that it's not worth continuing or starting, whatever the case may be. You just have to accept, that's the key word, accept that everybody won't like your art. And that's okay because you like it. And you don't need the validation of other people in order to be an artist. So, next point, art demands authenticity and courage to display your understanding. So, like I said, because it's coming from you and it's coming from the way you see the world, whatever creation it is that you're creating, it demands that you have the courage to essentially showcase this way of beauty that you see in your eye. And you know, you stick to it, you stick to yourself. That's the thing. It's like right now we have a lot of artists that want to sound like other artists because for whatever reason, you know, they might have seen another artist had success, and so they feel like they have to imitate that in order to get that same success. Some of them are good at it and some of them are horrible at it, and the results vary. But Rick Rubin says that art demands authenticity. So you have to remain true to yourself as an artist and true to what it is that you see, because what it is that you see is what is going to that's the beauty, that's the greatness, if you will. It's what you see. And if you can get other people to see it too, then, you know, great for you. But sometimes it doesn't happen that way. Which also, you know, leads me to the question too, like when we're talking about art and, you know, being an artist, it's like this question of why does art exist comes to my mind. And like when you think about it, Rick Rubin says that it's essentially to raise the human vibration and bring, you know, our levels of consciousness to different levels. And I feel like I would agree with that. But when I think about why does art exist, it brings me to another question of like, okay, well, what is it that I love about my favorite artists? And, you know, when I'm thinking about my favorite artists, like J. Cole, he's a rapper. I love his authenticity. I love how honest he is about his story. I love how he's like the underdog and how he's able to depict that in his songs and stay true to that. I love his authenticity. With Beyonce, I love her dedication to the work that she puts into the stage performance, the wardrobe, the hair, like all the things, all the elements, you know, the little details that these artists put into bringing forth a vision or an idea. And, you know, so with that question, why does art exist? I feel like it always reminds me, like when I'm watching something or when I'm listening to an artist that is inspiring me, it always reminds me of my why. It always reminds me of what it is that I really want in life. Like, some art has a way of taking you out of the real world for a little bit, just a little bit of time, and helping you kind of refocus and re-see like what it is that life is about, like at the end of the day. And I think for me, it's, love, success, and being able to be an inspiration to others, being able to have an impact on others, being able to have an give back to music, to give back to hip hop, to give back to the world in that sense, in that case, and so that other people who come after me can also experience, art, music, and be inspired and create great things and be authentic in their expression as well. So for me, that's what it's about for me. And, I do feel like art exists to, push us to different realms and different levels of consciousness, whatever you believe in. But essentially it's just it's opening new ways of seeing the world and seeing your life and where you play, the role that you play in all of this. So, takeaway number 2, children teach us that anything is possible. So I love how Rick Rubin uses children here to emphasize the importance of art, because children, one thing about children, they don't have any idea of, well, small, depending on the age, sometimes they don't have an idea of time. They also don't have an idea of, resources or limitations. Their mind is like, the sky's the limit. If you could think it, they're naive and they are, everything goes. And so Rick Rubin basically, and throughout the book, is talking about how as creators, we have to adapt that mind state, that childlike mind state, in order to allow our ideas room to be able to just even grow. It's like, if we have an idea and we're thinking about all the ways the idea could go wrong, or we're thinking about all the ways that we can't do it, then we'll never bring the idea to fruition. It'll never happen. And essentially the idea will go to someone else. So I love the fact that Rick Rubin talks about how ideas are not our own. And I think as an artist, or I know as an artist, I can attest to this, because sometimes, I'll be just doing whatever, cooking, cleaning, or something, and an idea will come to me, and I'll have to stop right then and there and actually like write it down. Or if I hear a melody, I'll have to like hum it out, make sure I get my my phone and press my audio voice recorder so that I can remember what it is that I said, because oftentimes I'll forget it, and once you forget it, it doesn't come back, or at least sometimes, a lot of times, it doesn't really come back. So he talks about how art demands space. It demands, you have to be open, one, to the idea. And in order to be open, your mind has to be clear. He talks about how breath work is great for that, yoga, and just, not having anything on the mind, so that you can receive the idea and then be able, giving yourself the space to execute the idea. And with this childlike mind, you're not thinking about how it's going to sell, how people are going to perceive it. You're just thinking about, what is it that you're trying to communicate? And, you don't even have to explain why you're trying to communicate. It's just, what is it that you're communicating with your art? And what is the best way to communicate that? I think as an artist, you learn ways of communicating the idea better. So like at one point in your artistry, you might have communicated the idea this way, but then you realize you could also add these elements to your communication, and now that makes your communication even more effective and more likely to resonate with someone who's listening to or watching or whatever, on the receiving end of the art. So you definitely have to have a childlike mind. And I think that's hard too for artists who are, or creatives who are independent, and they're oftentimes funding their own artwork, their own creativity, and they have to play both hats, the business hat and the creative hat. And it's hard, it's difficult balancing the two. And so I don't think that it's possible to put on both hats at the same time. I feel like I've tried to do it and I've failed. But what seems to work for me, at least, is if I give myself space to be just a creative. Like, don't worry about how I'm going to get this out, who's going to listen to it. And I'm speaking from a standpoint of music. Obviously, there's other types of arts like drawings. There's writings. There's so many other types of creation. But I'm just speaking from music because that's what's more personal for me. Those of you listening, whatever it is that you're creative at, or that you, that is your creativity, your passion, your calling, apply it in that aspect. But, yeah, I definitely have to put on one hat at a time. I have to put on my creative hat, be in my creative bag, communicate what it is that I'm trying to communicate, and then have that kind of done. And then I can go put on my business hat. But the thing about creativity is that it's not like it stops coming. So it's like, especially like if you're in a zone and you flowing, sometimes when you go onto the business side of things and you're trying to put on your business hat and plan out, how you're going to deliver this art, you might still have other ideas because the creative side is like, oh, and what is this? And, try this. And, it's like this little voice that just keeps telling you to do different little things. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think as an artist, like as a creative, that's where I struggle the most, because my mind is always, I think naturally I'm a born creator. So, and I don't even think, I know naturally I'm a born creator. So I'm always thinking of different ideas, and sometimes nothing is done because I'm thinking of different new ideas. So I would definitely benefit from someone that's like more business oriented and an executor, because I would be able to be creative and then let them handle the business side. But sometimes you don't have that luxury, and sometimes you gotta, knock off one side of your brain for a second so that you can focus on the other. Okay. So also, Rick Rubin says that the muse is a visitor, not a resident. So this goes back to the idea that our ideas are not our own. I believe that when we have an idea, it's because we're open to the idea, but I don't think that we are the creators of ideas. So like all the greatest music that I've ever written, any song or idea that I've ever had and executed, I don't know if I would necessarily take responsibility for it. I can say that it was given to me at a receptive time in my life, and I was just able to kind of, it's like very spiritual. It's like you hear something and you just act. You just do what you need to do to get it out, and you don't worry about anything else but just getting it out. So it's a particular type of focus, but I don't think that the idea comes from you. I think that there's like this stream of idea. The way that I see it is like there's this flow and this stream of ideas that exist in the world, and they're just looking for someone to birth them. And sometimes that person that births the idea just happens to be you. And so I take everything that, especially like if I'm listening back to something and I'm just like, dang, I don't know what I was on when I wrote this, but this is like excellent. Sometimes I shock myself, and it's because the idea didn't come from me. It's because it came from, I don't believe the idea came from me. I believe that it came from something greater than me, and that I was just receptive at the time. So, when he says the muse is a visitor, not a resident, that's basically exactly what I'm saying, is that because it's a visitor, you really have to take the time out that when that visitor comes, when the idea comes, you are able to tend to it so that it doesn't leave, because it'll leave and it'll find another mute. It'll find another person to execute the idea. And another thing too with the whole, with children having a childlike mind and things like that when it comes to creativity, is that I think the hard part about it is that because we live in a world that doesn't prioritize the arts. So when we think about art, it's not prioritized as much as compared to other major industries. And, I don't think that the average person who's in survival mode has time to really enjoy art or appreciate it. What they might enjoy is something that allows them to kind of escape what it is that they can get away. But even that, there's a price to that a lot of times people who are in survival mode can't necessarily afford. But there was a statistic that Rick Rubin put in the book, and he says that 78% of college educated workers over 25 wish they were more creative. And I think that a lot of that, the reason for that is because people get into the workforce and then they realize how mundane and whatever the case may be, and they're not essentially happy, and they know that there's more to life. And I feel like art, like the business side of the world is great and everything, especially just all the family and business and community, that's great. But I do feel like art is like the missing piece that helps you have like this well-rounded life experience. And like what would a world without music be? What would a world without paintings be? I feel like it would be very sad, depressing. Like we wouldn't, oftentimes people put their emotions to the side and they don't really address them. And, they need the artists to remind them, no, this is how you feel. This is what's really going on with you. You're just not saying it. You're not giving it time because you don't want to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. But like the artist or the creative, they're the person that's that voice for what it is that you're feeling, and they're able to articulate it in the greatest way. And it reminds you like, oh, I am human. I do have feelings. And, I probably should take some time out to feel what it is that is going on, So art reminds us to feel things, to see, when we see paintings and we get emotions and we get stirred up and things like that, like movies, all of it, like it just reminds us who we are and what we want and what life means to us, Takeaway number 3 is that great artists don't wait for inspiration. So just like I was talking about that muse that comes and visits and those ideas that might come, sometimes it could go months. I could go months, years. Excuse me. I don't think I've ever went years, but just some time before like an idea will actually visit, and then I'll have to start with a blank canvas, and that's okay. And that's what the whole thing about great artists don't wait for inspiration. I remember hearing J. Cole talk about this one time in an interview. It's like he got into a system and a routine of putting his art, almost like time blocking his time, so that he made space for jotting down ideas, making songs. If you're working on an instrument, perfecting that craft. So just basically holding space for your art and your creativity so that you can allow ideas to kind of form that way as well. And you're not waiting for inspiration, because sometimes inspiration doesn't come. And sometimes, life events have to happen in order for you to get re-inspired and things like that. And depending on how often those life events happen, you're talking about, you may or may not receive inspiration. And if you're really, true about what it is that you're doing as a creator, as an artist, as a creative, you want to make it so that no matter if inspiration comes or not, you're still putting out ideas, drawing up ideas, getting him on a paper, just starting, just putting it out there and not being afraid of the blank canvas. Rick Rubin talks about, he calls it the white canvas, and he talks about battling it as an artist and how, sometimes you're not going to have the best idea. There's a humility to being an artist. Sometimes I write stuff and I'm like, this was trash. I would never share this. Like, I will never, or I'll listen to old music and I'll be like, this is trash. Like, what was I thinking? Why didn't I do, XYZ? But it's like, you have to start from somewhere, and you have to get over the judgmental part that comes with being a creative, and that self I want to call it, it's almost destructive, because it's like you're over criticizing yourself, and you just need to just be a creative and let whatever flow. Like, there is no box with creativity. There is this, literally the box is whatever box you create for yourself. And that it goes back to having that childlike mind of anything is possible. So as long as you can think it, regardless of the execution part of it, the creation part of it demands that you just be open, be naive, and explore the possibilities that come with it. Every great artist has done this. I don't think that we could have Michael Jackson's, Leonardo da Vinci's, or Tupac's, Beyonce's, not OJ's, Earth, Wind and Fire. The list goes on and on and on. Jasmine Sullivan. I don't think we could have these artists. And I named a lot of singers, but of course there's many types of artists. I don't think we could have them. They could exist if they didn't go through that white canvas, battling that white canvas and not knowing what to talk about, what to sing about, what to write about, what to draw about, and just having the courage to put something down regardless. So if you are an artist, if you're creative, definitely keep that in mind, and create a system, create a routine so that you can get into the habit of perfecting your craft regardless of if inspiration comes. So lastly, I just want to leave you all with some of the destructive habits to creation that Rick Rubin talks about in the book. And so I'll read them off because it's a pretty lengthy list. So starting but never finishing, over criticizing yourself, which is what I talked about a lot, demanding results, never starting, thinking you'll repeat someone's experience if you try. And, most likely, let's say it could be positive or negative experience. You feel like someone else already did X, Y, and Z, so you're probably going to get the same result, which might not necessarily be true. Relying on others' opinions, focusing on the results instead of the process, and depending on someone's gratification. So those are all things that hold creativity back and can stifle it, or have stifled it. And as an artist who's done this for really 8 years now, going on 8 years, I can definitely say that I've experienced all of that, every single last one of them. And I think it just comes with the territory. Honestly, I think as a creator, having a lifestyle that that doesn't encourage those things and kind of can keep you focused on what is your goal and what it is that you want to get, what it is that you want to accomplish. I think that's important. And even like your environment, the people that you keep around, the things that you listen to, whether that be a podcast, a video, or music, all these things it's like downloading onto your mind, and it can have an effect on the way that you see creation and art in the world. So if you are a creator, if you're an artist, you have to kind of tailor your world to complement you as an artist, and to complement your curiosity as an artist, your creation, what it is that you want to create. I know for me, like if I'm trying to think of different ideas or something, I might look in nature or watch different documentaries to get inspiration that way. I love history, and I love diving into history when it comes to just anything really. And it gives me it always gives me different ideas. And cause I feel like nothing is new under the sun. So like something that someone else has done is also it's probably something that I could reiterate as an artist. And, you know, that's a whole nother book, Still Like an Artist. We can talk about that. We can talk about that on another day. But, you know, as an artist, you take things that inspires you and you just recreate it and make it your own. And that's what makes you unique, you know, because the way you see it is different from the way someone else saw it. So essentially, you know, learn how to let go of what it is that you're creating. Not be careless, but just have a sense of detachment and know that you can't control everything. You can't control how people perceive your art, and you can't control what their reaction to it may be. All you can do is just be the vessel, be the artist, be the creative, have the courage that it takes to bring to life whatever it is that you're bringing to life. And anyone that has ever brought anything to life knows the journey, the process, and the pain that comes with that. It's not as sexy as people think it is. You know, it's great to see the music, it's great to see the art, it's great to see the final product, but the creative process is gruesome. It's like it's very it brings you to yourself. If anything, it makes you face yourself. It really makes you question what it is that you want in life and why you want it. And if you're real, if you're true about what it is, if you're serious about what it is that you're creating, you're going to push through it in some kind of way, no matter what, and get through it and create and bring to life what needs to be brought to life. So this episode has been brought to you by yours truly, Taylor Nixon, bringing to life all the things great, talking about creativity because it's something that I love. And I hope you got something out of this, my fellow creatives, my fellow artists, and artistes. You all have a great week, and I'll see you again next Sunday, Lord willing. And yeah, you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Peace.